Hello everybody, my name's Paul Sinclair. I'm the head of sales for Wildlife Drones. As I've mentioned, we're very excited to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to attend our inaugural webinar. Wildlife Drones hope to provide regular webinars which will cover different subjects of drone-based VHF telemetry tracking. Along the way, we hope to introduce a range of guests who will be specialists in their field associated with each of the different topics we'll discuss. And I'd like to now introduce you to our specialist for this webinar. With us today, we have Jamie Erickson, who's the Sales Manager for Advanced Telemetry Systems, or ATS. And he's being supported by Tom Garron for the question and answer session at the end. And we also have Grant Rhodes, who's a PhD student in Dr. Ringelmann's lab at the University of California's Davis campus. Today I'll be providing an insight into the capability of the Dragonfly radio telemetry receiver, supported by some case studies from different regions of the world. We'll then hear from Jamie about ATS's vast range of specialist tags and their different features, their benefits and their capabilities. And with his many years of experience, I'm confident Jamie will be able to answer any questions you may have about VHF or GPS tracking. In Grant's studies, he works with the Delta Waterfowl Foundation. His program is focusing on innovative research in the waterfowl ecology. Grant's work in the prairie pothole region of Saskatchewan in Canada uses advanced drone technology, including the Wildlife Drones Dragonfly telemetry system. And utilizing these tools, he monitors breeding waterfowl with a focus on juvenile survival rates and the blue-winged teal. So just before we kick into the actual presentation, I'll just have a couple of housekeeping details. After the presentations, we'll have a question and answer session. Questions will be delivered via the presentation chat box. If you wish to present a question to the panel, the first step is to raise your hand electronically. You can do this by clicking the little hand icon at the base of the screen that you're looking at. At this point, our tech support will provide access to the chat box and you'll be able to type your question. For those of you who wish to make contact with any of our panel, we will display our contact details again in the last slide. And both ATS and Wildlife Drones will be attending the TWS conference in Baltimore in October. So please come and introduce yourselves, as we like nothing more than to meet people in person. And finally, on the 15th of October, Wildlife Drones will be providing a live demonstration of the Dragonfly's capability at the Bracken Reserve, which is located just outside San Antonio in Texas. If you'd like to attend or just want more details, please send me an email and I'll send you a link for the registration and details. So without further ado, let's start the presentation. So who are Wildlife Drones? Wildlife Drones was started by Dr. Debbie Saunders, who's our CEO and Chief Remote Pilot. She's also a conservation ecologist. She was studying the critically endangered swift parrot, which is a small migratory parrot that lives on the east coast of Australia. Because it moves so quickly and covers such vast distances, Deb found there was no suitable tracking for what she was trying to achieve. So in 2008, while doing a PhD, she came up with the concept of strapping a radio telemetry system to a drone. She proved the concept in 2011 while doing her postdoctoral research and recognized there was a commercial opportunity. So in 2016, she established Wildlife Drones. We currently operate out of the Australian National University Innovation Hub in Canberra in Australia. Excuse me. Over the last 13 years, there have been 5 different models of our radio telemetry solution, culminating in the stronger, lighter and smaller device we've recently christened the Dragonfly. And if you look at the photo on the right, you can see the Dragonfly mounted underneath the FreeFly Systems Astro drone. For reference, it's roughly twice the thickness of a cell phone, but otherwise about the same dimensions. There are 3 principal components in the Dragonfly system. The first is the drone, and we recommend the FreeFly Systems Astro drone. The primary reason for this is that it has shielded electrical components. This is essential because most drones manufactured emit high levels of VHF noise. This noise drowns out the VHF signal from the tag, making them very difficult to detect. Another drone option is the DJI Matrice 210 version 2. A cool feature about the Astro drone is that it provides power and location data directly to the Dragonfly through a clip-in, clip-out, multi-purpose gimbal mount. Why it's so cool? Not only will it take the Dragonfly, but to increase the return on investment for the drone, you could swap our payload out and put in something like an RGB camera, thermal camera, mapping camera, or something like that, so you can utilize the drone across more purposes. Typically, we get 20 to 25 minutes flying time out of a pair of batteries, and they're mounted on top of the drone. I guess the Dragonfly's primary piece of magic is that it is able to track 40 VHF tags simultaneously and continuously, storing data location as it's flying. It can also track any brand of VHF tag. So if you've already got tags deployed in the field, it's highly likely we can locate them if we can find their signal. The other commonly used practice is to look for VHF and GPS tags in combination. And the way you would do that is to utilize the VHF component when the tag is outside of mobile coverage to locate the tag. And then with a data uploader strapped to the leg, you can fly into within a couple of 100 meters of the GPS component and upload that data without disturbing the animal, returning it to the office for analysis. The ruggedized base station comes with a brighter screen and longer life batteries, and with its rugged casing is very suitable for utilization in the field. It maps tag location data in real time and presents live data as you fly on the screen. So you're able to make strategic decisions about battery life, or about where you're wanting to fly to pick up as much data as you can. It has a customizable map view, and we'll see that shortly, which allows you to track all of the tags, some of the tags, or a specific tag at any time. Now I'll show you a couple of examples of different flying techniques to maximize tag detection. This first one is something we call a scouting flight. You essentially just launch the drone and send it out in a large circle. This is primarily to see which tags are around while saving time and power. While the Dragonfly is in the air, it automatically records tag location data into a CSV file. This allows you to either replay the flight later, perhaps in the office, or even have the option of emailing it to somebody else for analysis. The green dots you can see on the flight path indicate we've located some tag signals. You can see those down the left-hand side, but it hasn't defined where the animals are. In this instance, we're looking for koala. In the results filter, we can see down the right-hand side, there are a number of options, but the one that I would draw your attention to is the strength slider. We can, by using the strength slider and sliding it to the right, we can progressively remove the weaker tag signals. This isolates the strongest signal, which provides the position the Dragonfly was in when it was closest to the tag. In this instance, we can see we have located two different koalas at the two different ends of this scouting flight. If you were to purchase the Dragonfly, we provide 2 to 3 hours of training and walk you through results, filter options, and other techniques so you can maximize how you use the equipment to achieve the best results. In our second example of a flight, we have a very different flight profile. This site is a dense eucalyptus forest in northern New South Wales in Australia. And in their hunt for the koalas, the pilot has followed the river down the right-hand side, which is a bit difficult to see, but that's in case the koala are right down near the water drinking. He's also chosen to fly all of the ridges in this forest. This removes the ridge as an obstruction and reduces signal bounce while it's maximizing tag detection by looking into two valleys down on either side of the ridge at once. As with handheld systems, our antenna has a stronger and a weaker end. The white pins on the dots you can see on the flight path show the strongest direction in the antenna. And so by flying this type of flight pattern, the pilot has pointed the antenna in every direction multiple times throughout the flight, again maximizing tag detection. As you can see, again, we have too much data to determine the location for individual animals. So in this slide, you can see we've selected to look for only 4 specific tags by ticking the white boxes on the right-hand side. And you can see those here. As these tags are all identical ATS koala tags, they have the same signal strength. So by manipulating the signal strength slider in our results filter, we've isolated the single strongest signal from each tag. This has enabled us to identify the position of 4 different koalas, identified by the green dots. As you can see, this flight was 20 minutes long, and the filtering took only a couple of minutes. So in something like 25 minutes, we've covered approximately 1 square mile, and we've located 4 distinct animals. Here are some examples of projects utilizing the Dragonfly from around the world. In the top left, we can see Grant's work with Delta Waterfowl, studying the blue teal, and I'll let Grant share this with you in just a few minutes. Below this, we can see the giant Asian hornet. It's invading the US from Canada. Washington State Department of Agriculture officers were attempting to follow the hornets back to their nests in dense bramble-filled forests. You can imagine the hazards associated with this. This was proving dangerous and impractical. If you look closely at this picture, you can see the hornet has a tag glued onto its thorax. This allowed the officers to track the hornet at leisure, locating the nest with ease and being able to destroy it at their convenience. The next example is the Burmese python, second from the left on the bottom. The US Fish and Wildlife are trying to limit the expansion of the python into the Everglades of Florida. They're doing this by tracking the females who attract multiple males, allowing the officers to remove the males and help reduce further eggs being laid. If you look to the right, you'll see the pangolin. Deb was very excited to be invited to Vietnam to work with Save Vietnam's Wildlife to track the pangolin. She encountered very steep terrain, dense forest, and very high rainfall. Excitingly, she was not only to locate the pangolin with ease, but actually found a couple that were underground in their burrows. In this case study, the University of Western Australia had released 12 western swamp turtles. Unfortunately, within a few months, they could only locate 6 of them. Their determination was that they were being either predated or had moved out of the area. After they'd been searching for a few months, they called us in, and we were able to locate the missing 6 turtles within a couple of days. This was primarily due to the difficult tracking conditions in and around the swamp. So the Dragonfly was able to overcome the difficult terrain, and locating the receiver at height over the water presented opportunity to maximize the tag detectability, making the tracking more efficient and cost-effective. This example is from working with the USDA tracking wild pigs in Washington State. There's increasing interest around the world tracking wild pigs, primarily because they reproduce prolifically, they damage commercial crops and productive farmland, and because of their potential to spread disease. Working with the USDA has shown we can increase the amount of data they can collect, improving its quality and quantity, also by maximizing tag detectability. By positioning the drone over the dense forest, we've been able to increase their efficiency while tracking, again, providing a great return on investment. In this last case study, we're showing you one of the principal advantages of our system as brought to radio telemetry tracking. You can see here the habitat of the orange-bellied parrot, which lives literally on the eastern coast of Australia on the Tasman Sea. In the top photo, you can see the researchers were able to track over 161 acres using handheld telemetry, utilizing very limited access. But by using the drone, we could cover 9 times that area, so 1,483 acres, by sending the drone out over the inaccessible terrain, including over the water to the coastal islands. Just before I hand over to Jamie, I'll summarize what we've learned about the Dragonfly's capability. Firstly, by raising the Dragonfly to height above the ground, we can dramatically increase tag detectability and range. And having the receiver at height can also dramatically reduce the interference of ground-induced signal bounce. As we've seen in most of our case studies, we can cover difficult terrain with ease. And it's also been established that the drone disturbs wildlife less than humans tracking on foot. This applies to both the animals you are tracking and also the other species in the vicinity, allowing you to observe their natural behavior more easily. Lastly, as we've seen, you can track up to 40 animals simultaneously while understanding their location visually on a live interactive map in real time. All of these provide for a rapid return on investment and significant savings on an ongoing basis. So thank you for listening to my portion of the presentation. And if you have any questions, as suggested, please post them in the chat and we'll address these after the presentations. Jamie, happy to hand over at you. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Along with Tom Guerin, he's our senior VHF salesman. He's been in a long time. So when we get to the end, if there's anything I can't add or answer, Tom will be here with us. And a shout out to Morgan, our service coordinator. She's the one that started working on this, and she had to be gone today. So I'm jumping in. So here we go. So ATS has been around for over 40 years. So we'll go through the history, types of products, signal detection range, which is really cool that Wildlife Drones did some testing. And the programs options that we do with VHF is mortality and duty cycle. This is our building. We're about 45 miles north of the Twin Cities. Founded in 1981 by a group of biologists, engineers from University of Minnesota, and also the Cedar Creek group. So they are all working towards things, early polar bear tracking and so on, but the real pioneer in VHF tracking. Just a quick overview, not just VHF transmitters, but acoustic tags, GPS units, receivers, antennas, and then also the support devices that go with that. And we're just going to kind of graze over a few different sizes. It's nice to see an array of different things, how to add them, mount them, and so on. These are more for the reptiles. Tom has been very detailed in working with a lot of reptile tracking, where you have a 4-gram unit up to 12 grams or 28 grams. So you're going to be 30 days to a couple of years when you go to these type of transmitters. VHF, different types of antennas. It's all based on your project and what we can do to customize it to meet your deploy. This is kind of a fun one. Paul did mention the Burmese pythons, and this is actually a male that had 2 of our tracking collars, had eaten 2 of the Judas. They was, what were they, Tom? They were
possums.
Possums, yeah. For some reason, they used to trap rats with trackers, but now they're finding out that the possums with a collar, they really, really enjoy that delicacy. Next one is a couple of tiny ones. You saw the murder hornet on the bottom left, and also the bee. The T15 is a 0.15 grams, so it's wonderful for bats and smaller, it's smaller things, even butterflies. And then more of a standard VHF, 0.4 to 1.2 grams. These are going to be in your 15 to 30 day life range, depending on your ppm. And again, we're just kind of glassing over things. Fish transmitters. This is something that Tom's been doing a lot with Alaska over the years, so he is quite the expert in tracking. A lot of Alaska tracking is done with planes, and so these planes are going over the rivers, kind of like Paul, you're talking about how you follow the river. They're following rivers, and with these larger, like the F-1800s, you're sensing anywhere from 2 to 10 miles, depending on the signal strength and so on. But these can really extend your tracking. Just a few options of the mounts. When you look on the left, it's implanted, but a trailing antenna that's going to give you more range. The next one is more of a dorsal fin, so that's going to give you a really good range. And then the third one is on the right is more of another external mount. The more you have out, the longer the antenna, the more range you're going to get. And now we're getting into bigger mammals, a large implant unit with an internal antenna, the collar, which most people are used to seeing a lot of collars over the years. These can have anywhere from 1 to 4+ years of life with a VHF. So it can be tracking long-term tracking, an ear tag, which we have multiple different ear tag configurations from battery or solar only. I think the solar only is one that I'm excited about because when the sun comes up, after about half an hour, you have almost all day of tracking, unlimited life. So that's a nice option. And then your VIT, if you know what it's for, then you know. Just some pictures of our VHF collar on a wolf, baboon, and then this is actually a L20 GPS cellular and VHF on a lynx, which is probably one of my favorite pictures that came out of Europe. And now we're getting closer to Grant's world for avians. You have so many different mountings, your necklace, your suture prong and suture, your backpack for your larger animals, and then leg bands and so on. So again, we're just kind of giving an overview, 2.2 grams up to 75 grams, depends on the animal. Avians are more 2% of the body weight to put onto them. But again, just give you different options. And even from these, we can do other things to make it fit your animal better. Here's a few for avians. So you have a glue-on, backpack, necklace, prong, and suture, and trail. So it kind of gives you an idea of the 3 different mounts where your smallest one is a glue-on, and then you're going to more of a backpack. And then again, you're going to another type of band. This is the exciting thing. Everybody's always asking, what's your range, what's your range, what's your range? And it's very difficult based upon, height, environment, brush, clear line of sight also. This one was our solar powered VHF tag. So instead of a battery, it has a super cap in it. And this had really good range up to a mile, which is wonderful. And again, it's solar, so it's always going to be charging up through the daytime and up to the night. So it's a good option for something that you want to have long-term tracking on. Here's our T15. This is an optically started unit, so you have to use your phone to trigger it to turn it on. And this is up to 0.4 miles, 650 meters. Sorry for you outside the U.S. I always tend to go to the miles instead of the meters. But again, when you're trying to do the murder hornets and it's very dense areas and so on, you can put it on this, and at least you're going to have that type of range to give you more options to get in there and find them a little better. And it's our fish tags. This is one of our implants. This was 1.2 miles or more. A lot depends on the altitude of the drone or the plane, and it also the depth of the animal. So those are the 2 kind of things that. And Tom, does the water quality make a difference for detection range much?
Absolutely. The water conductivity will make a big difference on the signal strength, how far you can hear them.
But what's the longest you've heard from Alaska for some of their pickups of some of the fish?
Oh, they've got them for miles when they're up in their plane flying in that real clean water up there.
Yeah. And program options. So we have a mortality. So when we initially order them, you're going to give us a 4, 8, or 12, or whatever time frame you want for the number of hours that the animal is not moving. Once the animal moves, it's going to reset that switch. So it's got to be, no movement for 4, 8, or 12 hours. Once it hits that timer, then the program, it's going to tell it to double your pulse rate. So if you're normally tracking at 30, it's going to go up to 60, which is going to really help the drones pick up that signal at that higher pulse rate. It's going to get a lot more fixes. And duty cycle is something that it's pretty unlimited what you'd like to do. Like Alaska, they want it to be on and then off after 190 days or something like that. Or some that if it's a deploy and wait for it to come back up, you have it off for 60 days, and then you have it turned back on. So there's a lot of different things we can do with duty cycle to help you extend the life of the VHF or match what your requirements are. You know, here you have a collar, a glue on, and then a glue on the turtle. And here we go. We're going to turn this over to Grant. I did kind of jump through this, but again, it's just a quick overview to show how the mounting, all the flavors. And always remember that we can always customize any of our VHF to meet what you need. Here you go, Grant.
Okay, can everyone see this title slide?
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, well, like Paul and Jamie said before, my name is Grant Rhodes, and I'm a graduate student in Dr. Kevin Ringelman's lab. We were originally at Louisiana State University, and we've now transferred over to the University of California, Davis. And we work collaboratively with the Delta Waterfowl Foundation, and our research is primarily focused on using drones to study breeding waterfowl ecology in the prairie pothole region of Saskatchewan, Canada. And so today I'm excited to present on one aspect of our study, which was recently accepted as a manuscript in the Wildlife Society Bulletin, in which we've developed methods to estimate duckling survival using drone-based approaches. And so I'll start off with a brief introduction as to why this is important to us as waterfowl researchers, and then I'll describe the methods and equipment that we used and finish up with some results and key takeaways before we open up the floor to questions. So diving right in, let's talk about the importance of effective waterfowl management. Understanding how vital rates like adult survival and reproduction and their influence on population growth rates is crucial for effective management, as it helps us predict how populations will respond to changing environmental conditions and management actions. And in long-lived species like geese and swans, for example, adult survival is more influential on population growth rates than reproduction. However, adult survival remains relatively constant compared to the considerable variation in reproduction we see on the breeding grounds each year. And in contrast, short-lived species like blue-winged teal, for example, reproduction is the most influential vital rate on population growth rates. So accordingly, estimating the proportion of offspring that are produced each year and ultimately are recruited into the breeding population is a top priority for waterfowl managers who are looking to boost population trajectories. Now, in ducks, we can estimate production by studying nest survival and juvenile survival, both of which are discrete biological stages with different survival probabilities and methods for estimation. And while methods for studying nest survival are pretty well established in the waterfowl world, estimating duckling survival usually requires capturing and marking individual ducklings. And this can introduce bias in our survival estimates and are logistically challenging to implement for a number of reasons. One big one being that capturing ducklings on the nest as they hatch can potentially negatively affect their survival in the capture handling process. And the time frame that you have to capture ducklings when they hatch on the nest before they move to a wetland is very small. So you really don't have a lot of time to make that happen. Now, alternatively, we can capture and mark hens on the nest or even in the before the breeding season over a much wider time frame, and we can rely on the duckling's dependence on the hen to track their survival through time. Now, although tracking or capturing and marking hens is easier than ducklings, tracking the hen and her brood by traditional means still presents its own set of challenges. And that's because traditional ground-based methods like handheld or truck-mounted radio telemetry, at least in our system, is very labor-intensive and prone to signal interference. And usually requires aerial surveys to locate missing individuals, which at best provide, approximate locations. And more importantly, that still requires a second trip on foot to confirm the location of the radio marked individual. But also we need to get eyes on these radio marked individuals and their ducklings. And for those of you that don't know, duck broods are very secretive by nature, and they spend most of the time hidden in the emergent vegetation. So even when we locate them, traditional methods for getting eyes on them include binoculars and spotting scopes, which give us, partial to obscure accounts and may require more intensive methods such as flush or beat out surveys, which again might negatively affect survival. And so this is where drones come in. Drones are increasingly being used in the wildlife field for their ability to cover large areas in short amount of time with increased precision and reduced disturbance compared to traditional methods. And when equipped with thermal and optical cameras, they can increase detection of elusive species like our duck broods. And more recently, the integration of radio telemetry systems with drones, like the ones from Wildlife Drones, has allowed us to overcome some of those signal-based challenges and our ability to reach remote areas. And so our study combines drone-based radio telemetry, multispectral optical and thermal cameras, and radio Martins to study duckling survival in blue-winged teal broods. And so by our primary purpose here is to demonstrate that these methods can be used to estimate target parameters of, waterfowl and other species with similar life history traits and alleviate some of the challenges that researchers face when estimating juvenile survival. And so to familiarize you with our study area, looking from the bottom left corner out to the right, you can see that our study plots were located within the Prairie Pothole region of Saskatchewan, Canada. And this area is the most important area for breeding ducks in North America. It's also the most important area for agriculture as well. And so as such, this landscape is highly fragmented. It primarily consists of cropland and also managed grasslands used for hay fields or cattle pasture. And our research was primarily conducted on grasslands that were enrolled in easements through Ducks Unlimited Canada, as well as privately owned fields used for haying. And within these different land cover types, there's varying densities of seasonal, semi-permanent, and permanent wetlands as well. And so to begin our study, we started by searching for blue-winged teal nests from mid-May to early July. And we would locate these nests by using chain drag techniques. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a chain drag technique is, basically it involves an ATV, four-wheeler, quad, whatever you would like to call it, two of them dragging a chain through a grass field, and the chain rides on top of the grass and creates just enough disturbance to flush the hen off the nest. And once we find the nests, we will candle the eggs to determine their incubation stage and their hatch date as well. And we'll then construct a predator exclosure fence around the nest to increase the probability that it will survive to hatch and give us a brood to study. And when hens are late in incubation, typically over 15 days, we attempt to capture them on the nest using dip nets or nest traps like the one you see here. And we give them 3 separate markers. They get a USGS aluminum leg band, they get a uniquely coated nasal saddle, and a 4-gram prong and suture radio transmitter from ATS. And so this is what that looks like out in the field. You can see here this nasal saddle is a piece of PVC plastic that has been formed to the contours of the duck's bill using a molded teal replica. And it's affixed in the field by sliding an aluminum rod through the duck's nares and securing the nasal saddle with a set of stainless steel washers on both sides and crimping the aluminum rod. Now, the symbol and character you see here serve a purpose to denote our study area and the unique hen. So we have multiple different symbols, and the character can be a number or a letter to denote which hen it is. And for the radio transmitter prong and suture attachment, we simply located the best area on her back in between the shoulder joints, and we would sterilize the area and then give her 2 shots of lidocaine and make a small incision just under the skin to anchor that prong down. And then we would use a single suture to attach the back end of the transmitter just under the skin as well. And so by doing this, we could locate the radio Martin as well as identify her with confidence each time. And both of these markers were affixed with the intent that they would fall off within 4 to 6 months of attachment to reduce any potential negative effects to our adult females. And we were actually able to confirm that in our second field season this past summer when we recaptured several hens that had lost both their nasal saddles and radio transmitters, but kept their leg bands. So we were able to positively identify them. And so to locate our radio Martins, we use the DJI Matrice 210 drone that you see on your left here, which was equipped with a radio receiver payload and a computer base station from Wildlife Drones. And you can see here the radio receiver sits on top of the drone and the directional antenna sits on the bottom, and it's able to communicate in real time back to the computer base station, which displays our tracking session against the map of our study area. And this allows us about 30 minutes of flight time before we need to bring it back. And we're going to refer to this as the VHF drone going forward. Now, the drone on your right you see here is the Matrice 30T drone, and we use that to get eyes on our duck broods and as well as get counts on our ducklings. So this drone is a little bit of a newer model. It allows for about 45 minutes of flight time and comes equipped with a thermal and optical camera. And so we'll refer to this as the camera drone going forward. And so we would track the radio martin on her nest until she hatched, and then we would track her brood onto individual wetlands that they traveled to. And we use two different techniques to do this. So the first one you see here is just traditional triangulation techniques, which involves rotating the drone in 3 to 4 different locations. And the software program is then able to create bearings based on where the signal strength is coming the highest. And it will create an error ellipse around a mean location where the bearings intersect. And if you see in the bottom of the tag frequencies graph below here that we have a signal that is spiking all the way up to 100. So keep an eye on that. Now, to do these rotations, we need to kind of get a tip on where to begin in the first place. So the entire time that the drone is flying around, it's recording these signal pulses you see here. And so black indicates no signal detection, blue indicates a weak signal detection, and green indicates a strong one. And you can see that it's all around this wetland right here. We're getting a bunch of green dots. And so if we use the signal strength slider that Paul mentioned earlier and filter it to 100, we can precisely pinpoint where this radio martin is. And we get the same result using both the triangulation method and the more dynamic search approach that we described here. And so kind of what that looks like out in the field is something like this. The video may be a little choppy at first, but it should buffer. But basically, we fly around individual wetlands until we get those green dots, and then we'll filter the signal strength to the highest to precisely pinpoint where she is. And you can see as I'm going around this wetland and those green dots are populating the map, there's a signal strength that's spiking in the graph below. And so once we have that wetland location, we can use that location cue to send up our camera drone to detect our brood, resight our nasal saddles, and get counts on our ducklings. And again, if the video is a little choppy, just bear with me here. But here is blue-winged teal square J, according to her nasal saddle. And she's got about 10 ducklings here in this video at age class 1A, or about 3 days old. And since duckling mortality is typically highest within the first 2 weeks post-hatch, we attempt to get a count within 3 and 7 days of them leaving the nest, after which we get counts on them on a weekly basis. And so here she is again. She's got 9 ducklings now at about age class 1C, or 2 weeks old. So she's survived that initial gauntlet with most of her brood still intact. And finally, here she is again with 8 ducklings at age class 2C, or about 35 days old. This is the time that we would consider this a successful brood because duckling survival is so high at this point that they're most likely going to fledge to flight and enter the breeding population the next year if they can survive the hunting season. So in terms of search methods, we found that the more dynamic search approach that we described was more efficient since our broods were restricted to wetlands and not randomly dispersed throughout the landscape. So you can see in this picture here that we've got 3 separate locations. We've got a brood located up on the top left, a brood over on the right here, and then a brood located in the bottom center. And so we were able to do this all on about 30 minutes of flight time, very efficient. This would take us multiple hours to do this using ground-based approaches. However, in our system, like I said, our broods were restricted to individual wetlands, but using triangulation techniques may be more appropriate for animals that are more randomly dispersed across the landscape still. And using Cormack-Jolly-Siever models, we were able to estimate detection probabilities for both the VHF and camera drone, and we compare them against each other. So if you look at this figure on the right here, the x-axis has resights occasions 1 through 6. 1 and 2 equal the first week. 1 would be the 3-day interval, and 2 would be the 7-day interval, and then weekly thereafter. And so the VHF drone detection remained relatively constant throughout time, hovering around like 88%, going up to about 95%. And our camera drone changed a little bit more. It increased with brood age from about 50% all the way up to about maybe 92%, with a mean of 76%. And so this tells us a couple things. One, that the VHF drone works. We've never used it to track radio marked ducks before, so we were very happy with the results from our first 2 field seasons. And secondly, even though we knew where these broods were, we knew that they were located on a certain wetland, excuse me. When they were younger, they're much harder to see. We couldn't always get eyes on them. And we've recorded a bunch of habitat covariates and other variables that might affect our detection. And we plan to parse that out once we do a more formal analysis when our 3rd field season concludes. And so in conclusion, our primary purpose was to demonstrate that these methods could be used to produce estimates of duckling survival with improved detection and efficiency and reducing bias in our survey estimates, as well as improving confidence in our observations. And finally, we believe these methods can be used to estimate duckling survival and produce accurate estimates of production and allow us to estimate, how, duckling survival works in the face of different management actions, such as, predator management, conservation reserve program, etc. And so these are very powerful tools that we're using, and we're very excited about going forward. And so I'd just like to briefly give a shout out to all of our funding and collaborative partners, as well as all the technicians that helped us collect data for these past 2 field seasons, as well as all of you for listening today.
Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you all again soon.